Welcome to the Boomer Briefing Podcast, your 20-minute insight into the conversations shaping the future of the accounting profession. I'm your host, Jon Hubbard, shareholder and Chief Growth Officer at Boomer Consulting, and I'm joined by our CEO and shareholder, Jim Boomer. Jim, thanks for joining the podcast today.
You bet, John. Happy to be here.
And this episode kicks off a new series where you and I get to talk behind the scenes around what's actually going on and happening at our circle meetings that we recently facilitated. So recently, you and I were at our Accounting Innovation Center together in Kansas City, and we had our CAAS circles there together. And so I know I was in one room having great conversations, you were in the other. So now it's our chance to kind of share what's going on in our CAAS circle, and maybe those listening will gain some insights that they can apply to their firm. So Jim, I want to ask you kind of the first question here. What would you say, it was a short day and a half meeting, but what would you say was kind of the most lively or engaging conversations your group was having?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'll say it's probably not going to shock anyone, but it was, I'd sum it up as AI. And it seems like regardless of whether it's our client accounting and advisory services circle or tech circle or marketing and business development, all our circles, it's like laser focused on AI. The conversations start with what are the tools, what are the applications, gets into use cases, but then we dig a little deeper and it's, what are firms doing to prepare around AI readiness? And that's training, that's making sure your data is in order so that you can actually take full advantage of these tools and capabilities. So that would be one. I would also say we had a pretty lively discussion around CAAS career paths. Which I think made a lot of people think differently than just trying to take their teams and make them fit in the standard CPA firm career ladder, which I know, dating back to when I started with Arthur Andersen, that was a challenge with their consulting group is, it doesn't, that career path doesn't look the same as a tax professional or audit. So I think some light bulbs went on, and people were taking notes, and I know that they made some commitments to go back and look at their team structure, what does their training and development look like, but also what do performance measurements and rewards look like, and how do you make those and tweak those to make those really fit with your teams. And then I've got a third. I would also say there's a lot of discussion around just the tools to run the CAAS practice. So workflow, or practice management, budgeting tools, all of that. And then that led us back to where I started, AI. So those are a few of the things those were probably three of our deeper conversations that we had during our time together.
Yeah, and on that CAAS career paths conversation, I know with the tables I was at, there was a lot of conversation around just how work is getting done within the CAAS department is evolving and changing as well, which is then driving maybe hiring new types of hires that the firm has never had before. Okay, things like maybe engagement managers, or those that are like squarely focused on business development maybe, but just those roles that maybe wouldn't fit elsewhere in the firm, but make a lot of sense in the CAAS departments. Did you have anything similar happening in conversations at your tables?
Yeah, 100%. And I think those conversations are also happening kind of like AI outside of the CAAS circle. We're seeing across the firm like these non-traditional roles that is requiring us to think differently and not just try to cram them into a one-size-fits-all model. And really, it requires us to adapt and think a little deeper. So definitely an opportunity for a lot of firms in their CAAS group, but even beyond. So, yeah, and I'm gonna shift because I know you're the host officially, Jon, but I'm gonna ask you a question now. So, what would you say was your biggest aha moment or moments in the circle meeting when we had the CAAS group together?
Yeah, and we've been talking about this topic for many years, so I'm not sure if it's an aha other than it was just a central theme of the conversation, which is all around driving organic growth in the CAAS departments. When you take a look at the CAAS departments and compare them to maybe other service lines, other traditional service lines that exist in the firm, the CAAS area is really an area where firms want to be happening to their growth. They want to be attracting and winning certain types of clients. There's not necessarily clients calling and saying, I need some CAAS work done for me, and they're just kind of walking in the door. It's more of that proactive outreach, being clear on who your target clients are. Who is it we actually want to be proactively going after? And it doesn't mean you can't accept clients that fall outside that target client profile, but it does mean, and this is what our CAAS members were really highlighting, is we can't be all things to all people. And so we have to pick and choose, where do we proactively want to invest? Where do we proactively want to be involved in networking groups, channels, places that will get us in front of the right type of prospect and the right type of clients, so we can win more of that business and spend less time on maybe wrong fit clients. But in order to do that, Jim, they were talking a lot about understanding our suite of services. Okay. I was just speaking with a CAAS leader just the other day outside of this circle, and he said, it feels like I'm just kind of making it up as I go along because we can do all sorts of things. And that's true for a lot of our CAAS members as well. So if we understand who our targets are, well, what's the suite of services we want to be taking to them? Okay. If we can define that for ourselves first, it makes the conversations a lot easier when we are finally in front of those targets to be able to share with them what we can do for them and how we typically work with organizations such as them. And then the third thing, which I think should be music to all CAAS leaders' ears, which is cross-selling to existing clients, is really the lowest hanging fruit that you could take for that organic growth. And so while going out there and winning new logos and things of that sort are really fun and exciting, and we always want to be able to do that, most of the CAAS leaders I was working with, they're saying to themselves, we have a lot of great clients that are just underserved, that meet our target client profile, but we're not having the conversations that we need to be having. And that's not competition outside the walls that the firm is having to deal with. It's inside the walls of saying, oh, we need to do a better job collaborating with each other so we can sell more to existing, increase that stickiness with our clients, make it harder for them to leave, but then allows us to really stack on the value. Jim, anything you would add to that with the conversations you were a part of?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you 100%. Like, be planning and proactive and defining what are your ideal clients and what are the services that you think that would add value. I will say you kind of have to offset that by being adaptable and listening. And you brought up like having good conversations with your clients and different conversations than what you're used to. Asking the right questions will start to present all kinds of opportunities that maybe you couldn't think of if you were in that proactive planning. But opportunities will start to present themselves if you just invest the time in having a conversation about your client's business, asking them some simple questions about what their biggest opportunities are, what are their biggest pain points. They'll tell you, and you've built a lot of trust and relationship over the years, and you may not even thought of this is something I could be helping them with, but they're telling you. And so I think there's a lot of opportunity on the table, and you're 100% right. Leverage those existing relationships is a lot easier than going out and starting from scratch and having to build that trust from the bottom rung. So it definitely consistent with what I had discussions and heard our members discussing with each other.
Yeah. And I think something that came up too in that conversation, and I said the phrase kind of making it up, but it's really having that entrepreneurial approach. Because if the listeners take your advice in terms of essentially what you're saying is, if you want to change the relationship or grow the relationship with your existing clients, you first have to change the conversations you're having with them. You have to have different types of conversations than maybe you've historically have had. And doing that can take an entrepreneurial approach, because if you have that conversation, you may not necessarily know if you can solve every single problem, as you highlighted, that they have, but they're viewing you in a new light, and you're going to have opportunities to serve them in ways that you don't currently offer. And it's going to require you to try something new and maybe put yourself out there a little bit, which is so different than we've historically seen in other service lines. And so your advice is well taken, Jim. Here's my question. So part of the goal of our members attending our circle meetings and meeting with each other and hearing ideas is that when they leave the meeting, they actually have a short list of maybe action items, or at least things that they are going to either start doing or stop doing or continue doing. That's why they're showing up, because they want to do things differently than they were then when they walked in the door. Did you have any insights into maybe what some of the members were leaving with that they were going to be committing to?
Yeah. I mean, we since the beginning of the Circle program, way back in 1999, there was always this element of planning at the end and peer accountability at the beginning of each meeting. And so we wrap up every Circle meeting with a take it back session, where, we've all been to these conferences and these meetings, and we're just inundated with great information. But if we don't, in the moment, make a conscious effort to writing down what we commit to doing when we leave here and who we're going to go get involved to keep it moving forward, we get back into the day-to-day and nothing happens. So there was there was personal time to think and write those things down, but then to share with their peers. And so I'd kind of be a broken record and be talking about the major topics that we heard, but a lot of those things showed up on people's take it back list of, continuing to think differently about AI readiness. There were firms, there was a lot of sharing. So when we look at like the topic of practice management and workflow and budgeting, there were firms that were trying new solutions, and there was a lot of intrigue and interest in how that's going. And so that there were a lot of the members that said, one of the things I'm taking back is to connect with those other members that, are already starting to implement or have implemented solutions that their firm has been thinking about or looking at. But I think the thing that's great to see is all the member firms of our CAAS Circle have one thing in common. Like, their firms view it as one of their strategic initiatives and truly have invested in developing that practice. They see it as one of the or the highest growth area for the firm. So these leaders are committed to taking some actions and not coming back to the meeting and saying, well, we're kind of at the same place we were last time. They want to be able to share the progress that they've made, and so do all their peers. So together, they're kind of pushing each and accelerating that progress. It really is great to see, and I'm it gives me a lot of pleasure to see when we started the CAAS Circle back in 2010 to where a lot of these firms are today. But it also gives me a lot of optimism of it's just getting started, and the amount of momentum and strategic thinking that's going into this. I see nothing but increased growth and continuing to scale these practices, but also scaling the value that they're able to deliver to their clients. And I think you brought up in the meeting, Jon, the whole concept of we need to move beyond just delivering things that people need or have to have. And it's when we get to the things that business owners want, more of the insight now analysis and the foresight of what are the levers I can pull to, exponentially grow my business. Those are the kind of things that business owners want, and they'll pay more for them, and it makes the relationship stickier and makes you an invaluable asset to their team, even though you're not officially a member of their team. So I think we're going to see a lot of action coming out of this round of CAAS circles.
That's great. I think something I've heard you speak on before is around the power of KBIs, key behavioral indicators. And I know with my group, there were several members there that were committing to new behaviors around speaking with clients, asking them different types of questions, prioritizing those proactive, meaningful conversations, because they know that that's going to lead to the results that they want. And so, like you, I'm really optimistic for this group. It's been going for a while, but at the same time, it feels like it is at the beginning. And so, if you are interested in joining the CAAS Circle, just go to boomer.com, check out the CAAS Circle webpage, and you will see all sorts of good information there. And of course, we'd love to speak with you about that as well to see if it's a right fit for you. But Jim, that's our time today. I know we could go longer, but we got to be cognizant of time and staying within that 20-minute threshold. So for those listeners, thank you so much for listening. These conversations and a part of this series is really designed just to give you more insight into what's actually happening and being discussed across our circle meetings. So please go ahead and subscribe so you can stay updated on the latest outcomes of our circle meetings. Jim, thanks again for making yourself available for this conversation. And for our listeners, thank you for listening, and please subscribe.